Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Bayou Bets for a Thursday, October the 20th. It's not just any Thursday, mind you. It's the Saints game day. Saints and Cardinals are playing this evening at 7:15. They are playing the Arizona Cardinals in the desert, and we're going to get to all that in just a minute. I'm Jim Derry, along with my friend Spencer the Guru Urquhart. Zoe Collinsworth is in the background, making sure we don't mess anything up, like we almost did. We almost did. But we want to talk about the things that are important. And what's important to us is Caesar Sportsbook, their official partner, odds partner of Bet.NOLA.com. And you can get the first bet on us. If you have not signed up yet, you can do so. $1,250 back is a free bet. Anything up to $1,250 back. If you don't win, you get it all back in a free bet. Use the code NOLAFULL. Also, you can enter to win 2 tickets to the LSU-Alabama game. Go to the game. Use the code NOLA LSU Ticks. I will get it right. And then also the 2022 tip-off ticket giveaway. Well, the Pelicans are about to open up their home season. Big win last night. We're going to talk about the Pelicans coming up. You can enter to win a pair of tickets to the big game on Sunday night against the Utah Jazz. NOLA.com/Pels Ticks, or if you easy to remember, Pel Sticks. I mean, I think Pel Sticks, is easier to remember, but that's up to you. Don't forget about our show every week, Catching Him with Carville. Here, James Carville, every Thursday. Zach, I had a good show with him this morning. Subscribe to the Bayou Bets channel to find out. So we got all kinds of stuff going on. If you want to comment here, we're going to talk about all sorts of things. Obviously, we're going to focus on the Saints and the Cardinals coming up in just a few hours here. And we're going to get to that in just a minute. But also, we're going to have a guest on, Max Meyer, editorial content writer for Caesar's Sportsbook, is going to come on the show at 4:10. We're looking forward to having him. He's got all kinds of good stuff that we can ask him about, and I'm looking forward. I was reading some things about the trends, Spencer, and also the newsletter. I'm doing it tonight, so you definitely want to sign up. If you have not yet, NOLA.com/Bayou Bets. Get our newsletter in your inbox every morning, and especially tomorrow morning, we will be reviewing the big Saints-Cardinals game. All right, let's get to the Saints-Cardinals game. Talked about it on Datitude this morning with Doug Mouton, and we had a long, extended conversation. I'm interested to get your thoughts, because I don't think you and I have talked all that much about this game. And obviously a must-win, really a must-win for both teams. I think the Cardinals are they're just in we're gone territory. Even though they're 2-4, I don't think they're in a division to where they're going to be able to catch up. So they probably don't think that. But for some reason, the Cardinals are 2.5-point favorites. This spread keeps going up, Spencer. The big money is on the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by that. I'm not sure why they're thinking the Cardinals are going to do well tonight, because I just don't see it for them. They're trending down right now. I feel like there's been questions surrounding Cliff Kingsbury, their head coach, and his play calling. Is he going to give up play calling or not? They don't really have an OC. He's basically the OC and the head coach. So who's he going to give up play calling to? And they just lost Hollywood Brown for the season, their leading receiver. Yes, they are getting DeAndre Hopkins back, but how is he going to be? I mean, coming off a 6-game suspension, is he just going to be able to just go right back to doing what he normally does? I know he's a former All-Pro, but he's up in age now. I don't see him being that elite receiver that he used to be. So I'm not really feeling the Cardinals. I like the value with the Saints.
Well, my big play this week was the Saints and a teaser. Saints and Raiders teaser. So you're getting 8.5 now with the Saints in the teaser, and you tease them with the Raiders at -1 against the Texans. Basically, the Raiders would just have to win against the Texans. I don't see the Saints getting blown out. It's so hard to predict this team, though. If I had to pick one way or the other, and I picked the Saints in my picks this morning, don't love it. The Saints are just too hard to predict. We don't know what we're going to get. I mean, if we get the good Saints going to win easily, I think. If we get the Saints that just play conservative and played the second half of Sunday's game last week, Saints are going to lose. So, I mean, if they play the first half Bengals team, they're going to win. And they play that for 60 minutes. If we get the second half Saints that just kick field goals and are conservative and all that stuff, I don't like them. So it's not a bet I would play. I wouldn't play the +2.5, but I would play them in a teaser. And really, if you're going to play the +2.5, you might as well just take the money line at +122.
Yeah, I like the money line.
I think that's probably the way to go if you like the Saints tonight. I think +122 is the way to go. Getting a little bit more value on your money. because I think the Saints either win or they struggle a little bit, and needless to say, find a way to lose. All right, if you want to comment, we'd be glad to take your comments and questions, because we are going to get back to the Saints. We're certainly going to talk more about the Saints, but we have a lot to talk about today. Again, Max Meyer from Caesars is coming on at 4:10 p.m., and we're going to talk about Saints with him. There's a couple things I want to get to first before we get to Max, and I want to talk about the Pelicans last night. 130 to 108 over those Nets. I mean, Spencer, how about it? I mean, Zion looked like he hadn't missed a beat. He hadn't played in 2 years. He was fine. And Brandon Ingram in the third quarter was just phenomenal.
Right. Yeah, the Pels really showed out, showing that they've got a legit big three that can hang with the best of them, with B.I., Zion, and C.J. McCollum. You know, all of them, I believe, had over 20. B.I. and Zion, I think, had over 25. And they look like a well-oiled machine out there. Look like the much better team than the Nets, who still look like have a lot of the same problems with KD and Kyrie. So yeah, the Pels are just rolling right now. I love to see it. I figured they'd play pretty well. I didn't think they played that well though. I was surprised at how crisp they looked, with considering Zion didn't play a single game last year.
Well, today is show day for me. I had Data 2 this morning. I drove to the city, and I went and recorded the final bet show for Fox 8, which will be on Fox 8 at 10:30 this evening, and then we're doing this show now. So it's kind of interesting. We talked about the Pelicans and the final bet show that's going to be on Fox 8. An interesting note for you: the Pelicans total to you could bet on the Pelicans at plus 3,000 to win the championship just 5 days ago. Plus 3,000, 30 to 1.
Yeah,
it went down to plus 2,700 when we did the show on Monday. And after their win last night, somebody plopped down a huge bet on the Pelicans to win the championship. I think 60 grand. And it dropped it all the way to 20 to 1. The Pelicans are now plus 2,000 at Caesars to win the NBA championship, which is absurd. You can't bet that. There's no value there.
Yeah, no more value. Yeah,
but and I've said this a million times, you got to shop around, because you can find that plus 3,000 and plus 3,500 at other places. We got some comments and questions. Well, first of all, it's Jerry saying it's game night. He's saying, who dat? He's saying, go Pels. He's saying, go Saints. Jerry, we're in the same boat. Christopher Williams has a question for you. Who do we think is going to score in tonight's games? This is probably a DFS question, and I'm going to let you handle that, because that is your specialty, Spencer, as we jump around from sport to sport.
For sure. Yeah, well, Alvin Kamara, I think, is overdue for a touchdown. So I definitely would pencil him in for one. Chris Olave's back. I'd pencil him in for one as well. And as on the Cardinals side, Benjamin, he's supposed to be their starting running back. He'll probably get one. And then Kyler, of course.
Yeah, you got to play. I think you got to play Kyler Murray as well. All right, Leda Ponomarova. I'm trying. I tried my best. She's only here for Tay-Tay. I mean, where is our friend D Squared when we need him? And the choo-choo train is rolling. The Taysom train is just a rolling. So I mean,
he might get one too. I mean, he's become like the goal line back. He's vultured some from Kamara. So yeah, I might pencil one down for Taysom as well.
You never know. All right, Max Meyer, we're waiting on him to come on, and he's going to talk some. We're going to ask him about the Saints first. So I do want to jump here. Here's something that I don't get. All right, LSU-Ole Miss, and this line is actually, I think it's 2.5 now. LSU is a 2.5 point favorite over Ole Miss. It started Ole Miss -1, and it has kept going more and more and more and more towards the Tigers. It is now 2.5. The LSU Tigers are favored. Spencer, explain this one to me.
Yeah, it's similar. I have the same feeling about this line as I do the Saints-Cardinals line. Give me the dog with Ole Miss. I mean, I'm not trying to hate on LSU, but I feel like they're not quite ready for Ole Miss. Ole Miss has got a really strong team this year. The Lane train's rolling strong. I know everyone gets on Lane Kiffin.
He's a bum.
A lot of times he falls short in big games, but I'm thinking this is one they'll be able to get done. I know it's in Baton Rouge, but I don't get why that line's like that. If LSU was the 2.5 point dog, I'd probably say, give me the points. But since Ole Miss, give me the points with them. I mean, it's a pretty close match, but I don't see why Ole Miss is a dog, considering they have a better team, I feel.
Here's a weird handicap that you're ever going to get, and you're going to get it twice in this show. And I'll save the other one for later. This line makes no sense. Ole Miss should be a 4 or 5 point favorite in this game. And if Ole Miss were a 5 point favorite, in this game, I may be more inclined to take the Rebels because it would make more sense to me. But the fact that all the people that know what they're talking about and the people that win money and the people that have big money are betting LSU enough to make this line drop makes me want to bet LSU. I probably won't play it at all, but if I had to, I would play LSU. I took it in the Carville picks. It makes no sense. LSU should not be favored in this game. Ole Miss is a better team overall, although I'm not real sure about their defense. If Jaden Daniels plays as well as he did the other day, they're going to be fine. But something stinks, and when something stinks, I'm going to go towards the stinky side. I'll go towards the side that makes no sense. And if you would have asked me last week at this time, I would have said Ole Miss would probably win by a touchdown or so, but I'm taking LSU in this game. It's totally weird. And again, we're going to have another one of these lines coming up in big bucks. And I can't wait to talk about that, but we're not even close to there yet. Again, we're going to talk more about Saints-Cardinals as we go along. We want to get to some other things in the show, some things that are important before Max Meyer from Caesars comes on. He's supposed to come on at 4:10. He's not on as of yet, so as soon as he pops in, we will stick him in the show. I want to talk about SEC football title odds. Now, I think if you look at this, there is a team with great value. I mean, Tennessee really could be the number one team in the country, Spencer. I don't understand why they're still plus 450.
Right. Yeah. When I looked at that before the show, I was like, bam, there's the value, Tennessee. I mean, they already beat Alabama, so they've accomplished a big thing that they needed to do. So like, I'd have thought they'd be more like plus 250. So the fact that they're still plus 450, get them now, because if they beat Georgia, they play Georgia in a couple weeks, I believe. If they beat Georgia, then they're going to be probably minus, they'll be the overall favorite. So get them now while there's value.
I completely agree. And I don't understand that line. I mean, Tennessee just beat Alabama. Why are they that much more odds-wise? You know why? Because Joe Q. Public, who really loses lots of money, is still betting on Alabama and say, "Oh, that's not going to happen again."
Nick Saban.
Not going to happen again. Not going to happen again. We'll just keep betting on Alabama until people stop betting on Alabama. Georgia, there's no value there. I do think that Georgia should be the favor, but at minus 130, Spencer, I don't think you can bet them. So you kind of have to stay away from that. Max Meyer, if you can hear me, you are in the room, but you are not connected. It says I can't put you in there. You need to connect your mic and your camera before we can get you into the StreamYard thing here. And with that being said, we're going to talk again about some other things. I want to go back to Saints-Cardinals, Spencer, and tonight some keys to this game. And there's no question. You talked about Alvin Kamara, and I've touched on it a couple of times. It was in one of the main things I talked about in Datitude on Monday was I didn't understand at all. I mean, we saw Taysom do all these different things last week in the victory over Seattle, and then comes into the Cincinnati game and he only gets 9 touches, 5 rushes, and he threw the ball 4 times. I don't understand at all what they were thinking. And, look, I've been critical of Pete Carmichael throughout the first part of the season, but I think he's done better the last 3 or 4 games. But just because a team knows you're going to do something, don't you think they got to prove to me that you can stop it, and then maybe we'll stop doing it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. To me, they should have used more of Taysom last week, considering there were all the receivers down. You had no Olave, no Thomas, no Jarvis. I mean, there was no excuse why they didn't use Taysom more. I didn't understand that. So hopefully he gets a little more involved tonight.
I think he will. And kind of reiterating a point that you talked about earlier and talking about Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara, I mean, I know he had 19 rushes, which is a decent amount, especially in today's NFL, but I don't understand 5.2 yards per carry. I thought he should have been involved a bit more too, and it seemed like they relied a little bit too much on Andy Dalton, and it kind of backfired on him, especially in the second half. You need to feed the ball to Alvin Kamara. Give him 24, 25. I'm not saying you need to do that every game, but the way the game was playing out on this past Sunday, I think there was a game where you should have given him 25, 26 carries. And the Cardinals have the 7th best rushing defense, so you might not do it tonight, but you've got to find a way to get him involved as much as you can when some of your studs are out.
Yeah, that's a lot of touches, though, for Kamara. I mean, he's a stud, but it's like if you give him that many touches, he could end up injured. He's had a lot of injuries throughout his career. So, I mean, Mark Ingram, I'm not saying to make him heavily involved, but probably a little more Mark Ingram would be good. And Taysom, some early down backs to where, I mean, if you don't have receivers, you might as well run the football. And if that's your strength, then you need to utilize that.
Well, let's see what Max Meyer of Caesars thinks. Thank you for joining the show. First of all, we appreciate it. Saints-Cardinals tonight. I know it's Thursday night. Any of these primetime games are big betting nights for Caesars and everyone else. Just talk about what you see tonight. It looks like the big money is on the Cardinals.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on, guys. Sorry about the technical difficulties earlier.
All good, Max.
Yeah. So Saints Cardinals, you have Cardinals who have the NFL's longest current home losing streak. You have the Saints behind Andy Dalton and his House of Horror performances on primetime in the past several years or so. But yeah, we've been getting good money on the Cardinals so far. About 77% of the handle for spread, about 70% of the handle for money line. I think, obviously two teams that have kind of disappointed this year. But, Cardinals getting DeAndre Hopkins back. I think there's still a little bit of uncertainty with how the Saints offense will look with Andy Dalton, and especially with all the injuries on offense. And even the defense, I think, is disappointed. I mean, this was a defense I thought was going to be one of the best in football heading into the season, and they haven't been that at all.
Does this line surprise you at all, Max? 2.5. I mean, I get it on a neutral field. We're saying that the Cardinals would be about a 1-point favorite, maybe a half a point, or pick them somewhere around there. Considering the fact that the Saints, I think, look, the Saints have certainly had their problems. Both teams have been dysfunctional this season is the best way to put it. But considering going through and looking at the schedule, Saints obviously with the one really bad loss against Carolina, does this line surprise you at all?
I think given all of the Saints injuries, this doesn't really surprise me because if both teams were fully healthy, I think the Saints would be favored on a neutral, but just given all the injuries that the Saints are dealing with, it makes sense to me that the Cardinals are like 2.5 in that range. And, and they still have the better quarterback in Kyler, even though, he's still kind of inconsistent, but at least we saw him running more last week. But yeah, the Cardinals have more of the star power. The Saints have the better roster, but they're just beat up.
For sure. Then do you think if Jameis Winston was starting, do you think that would make any difference in the line? Would that, do you think, make the Saints a little closer?
I mean, honestly, it really wouldn't make that big of a difference, maybe half a point, if that. And especially just because Jameis, we don't know if he's 100% healthy. We're assuming that he's not, and that this isn't a straight out benching versus Dalton. And so, I mean, even Jameis, the fit on this. Yeah. And I would
say a healthy Jameis. So to clarify my question, would a healthy Jameis move the line any?
I don't think more than a point, to be honest, and a point might even be generous. I don't know. With Jameis, I mean, the fact that he doesn't really throw to the running backs a lot, and he likes to throw the deep ball, and I don't think that that's exactly the best match for what the Saints offense is trying to do. Even though Jameis, I think, is definitely a more skilled thrower than Dalton, but with Dalton, it just seems that Alvin Kamara has come alive under him. They're able to, get Taysom Hill the ball more and his packages. And so I actually think it's really not that big of a difference.
Max, I saw an interesting trend, and I know you're an editorial writer, content writer that writes a lot about trends, and I'm a big trends guy as well. I write a trends column every week on whatever game the Saints are playing. And one thing I missed, and I didn't put it in my column this morning, I saw it later on, that the Cardinals have lost something like 8 in a row at home. How strange is that? And so does that affect? I mean, obviously bettors don't care that they've lost 8 in a row at home.
Yeah, and I think with NFL home field advantage, we've seen the value of home field advantage decrease over the years. It's definitely bizarre that a team Cardinals made the playoffs last season. They had a win total, I think 8.5 preseason. So, for them to lose 8 straight at home, it's definitely weird. But but that doesn't factor into the line necessarily. I just think that's overall a decreased importance on home field advantage overall in the NFL.
When you look at things like that, and I mean, obviously, I know you have plays that you like to make. Does that enter in your mind at all when a team has a streak like that going? Do you play those sorts of things?
Not really. Just because I don't know, with the I guess like the Cardinals, this is a different team this year versus last year. So you have that factor versus if it's trends over a single season, I kind of get it. But in the NFL, it's, 1 week's up and 1 week's down, and you never really know what you're going to get one week to another. I mean, it's definitely an interesting trend. Don't get me wrong, but it wouldn't factor into my handicap for this game.
Another one, I'm going to let Spencer ask the question of this, but another one that I found interesting is the Cardinals have been really bad on Thursday nights. They haven't won a Thursday night game since 2016. I think they've lost 4 or 5 in a row on Thursday nights. Do these trends, obviously they're different teams every year, do these trends matter to you at all?
Yeah, especially when it's a multi-year trend, that's where I kind of throw it out the window, and I really don't pay attention to it as much. I mean, and I mean, with Andy Dalton, he's lost 11 straight primetime road starts. And it's like, that's like going back separately. That's going back like what, 5-10 years or so.
Right.
And so,
Bengal days.
yeah. So I don't know, with the years that are multi-trend, like I think that they're cool stats and they're fun to, talk with your friends about. I'm sure they're good broadcast nuggets, but when it comes to betting, I don't think they really apply.
Yeah, and Spence, go ahead in just a second. But when I write my trends column, I think I do it more for it to be fun, and those are interesting notes more than they are something you're going to pick up. More times than not, they're not something that you're going to take into a betting booth. You don't go to a booth anymore, but when you take your phone and bet, those are the things that they're fun. But should they enter your mind when you're betting? I don't know. So go ahead, Spence.
Yeah, Max, I was wondering your thoughts on the Cardinals receiver situation. So down goes Hollywood Brown, but insert DeAndre Hopkins. I had said earlier that I felt like Hopkins might be a little rusty coming off suspension, but what are your thoughts on that? Do you think he'll be able to pick up right where he left off as a number one, or does the loss of Brown really hurt them?
I actually think the loss of Hollywood Brown really hurts them. And I think people are kind of assuming it's a 1-for-1 swap with Hollywood for Hopkins. Hopkins actually really struggled last season with the Cardinals. Like, he didn't really look like a true number one like he has been for the rest of his career, versus Hollywood for this season until he got hurt was. And then, there's obviously the factor, like you said, potential rust, that he hasn't played this entire season. And I don't really have much faith in Cliff Kingsbury, scheming up, routes like to get him open. Like it's a lot of, horizontal plays, like especially with Rondell Moore. But yeah, and it's interesting because Caesar Sportsbook bettors are all over Hopkins props tonight.
I saw that. It went up from what, like 53 yards to 62 or something like that?
Yeah, 57.5 to 63.5.
Okay.
And like 99% of the handles on the over. His receptions, 5.5, 99% of the handles on the over. Most money to score the game's first touchdown, most money by far to score a touchdown overall in the game. He had more money to score a touchdown in the game than every single other player combined for Thursday Night Football.
Max, what I find interesting is Joe Q Public they don't like betting unders in the first place. They just don't bet under on player props. I mean, I don't care what you said the line at. They just don't like betting under on player props.
Yeah, no, especially just with player props and the rise of fantasy football, everyone's rooting on their fantasy teams and likes the big stats. And so, you see that these props, are like below like 70 yards. And, like the person's like, oh, 70 yards, that's nothing. And so, but we get a lot of sharp action on unders and props. And it's definitely those types of markets. We're definitely focusing more on them this season than ever before.
Yeah, I'm not talking about Joe Q Sharp. I'm talking about Aunt Mabel and Drunk Joe at the bar.
Joe, but I would say the props that I guess haven't exactly helped the public as much are the touchdown props, just because scoring's been really down across the board.
Oh yeah, I stay away from the touchdown props. So it's just too fluky to me. I always go
like
toward the yardage props.
Yeah, it's like a home run prop in baseball. I mean,
I stay away from that. K props are the only props I touch in baseball.
Yeah, but it's obviously it's a lot more fun to root for something to happen than for something not to happen.
Yeah,
that's why.
But yeah,
you're not supposed to bet on what you're rooting for, though, right, Max? That's what we're trying to learn.
Always separate head from your heart.
It's hard to do.
The public doesn't realize that, though. That's why they keep losing money a lot of times.
There are a couple things I want to ask you about before we let you go. And there are, I'm kind of jumping around here, but other games in the NFL, there's a line that stands out to me that I've just got to ask you about. I do not understand at all. And look, I've been way higher on the Giants than most people have been. from August on, even actually July when I started my NFL team previews. And I've been super down on the Jaguars. But I've got to bet Jacksonville this week because I don't understand Jacksonville -3 at all against the New York Giants that are 5-1, and in my mind ought to be a 3-point favorite themselves. Explain it to me.
Yeah, so with the Jaguars, I mean, just a few weeks ago, like they were the AFC South favorite, and people were comparing them to the Bengals of last year as like, a basement team that could make a Super Bowl or a surprise Super Bowl run. And now, like since then, like they played in the monsoon against the Eagles. Like, I guess you kind of have to throw away that game. They had the surprising loss against the Texans, which definitely hurt. And then the Colts last week, they were leading and covering for pretty much the entire game before the Colts' final drive. So, and then with the Giants, their past 2 wins, they've come against the Packers and the Ravens, 2 teams we thought would be playoff teams ahead of the season. But they were down double digits, I believe, heading into definitely in the second half, but I think also in the fourth quarter against both of those games. So it's not like the Giants have been dominant, and all 6 of their games have been one-possession games, including all 5 of their victories. So their coaching has been phenomenal. I think Brian Daboll is definitely the coach of the year front runner. But talent-wise and the fact that they're eking out these games, I think that this is a nice buy low and sell high spot for both of these teams.
I got you. So, yeah, I'm kind of liking the Jags this week because I feel like they've kind of had some tough breaks. But, Max, I'd like to ask you about the Chiefs 49ers line. I know the Niners are underdogs there and have some injuries on defense, but they're coming off a down one. I'm thinking they might bounce back this week. What are your thoughts on that line?
Yeah, this game, at least looking at the recent data at Caesars, this is the clearest, I think, sharp versus public game.
Yeah.
We have 2 6-figure bets this week for NFL, and one of them came in on 49ers +3. We got another one. We got another $55,000 bet on 49ers +3 today. So I think that key number of 3, even though it's now gone, sharps were all over that number versus the public. They see it. The Chiefs lost a close game against the Super Bowl favorite Bills and think that they're going to bounce back. People love to think that teams will bounce back coming off a loss. And I guess they'll side with the perceived better team if both teams are coming off a loss. But the Niners, like you said, a lot of injuries on defense. But I really like Kyle Shanahan. I think, and D'Amico Ryans, their defensive coordinator, I think they have a great staff. And while the 49ers defense is still like mending, I mean, Mahomes against really good competition hasn't been the same compared to teams that he could shred. Like the Cardinals in week 1 when they were just blitzing him nonstop and he had those insane numbers. But yeah, so I think that this divide on this game is really fascinating to me. If I had to pick right now, I would take the 49ers and the points, but I'm keeping an eye on who's playing and who's not come Sunday.
And you talk about that, and we go back to Joe Q Public. Their perception is that any really good team are the teams that get the primetime hype, like the Kansas City Chiefs. They can't lose 2 in a row. And we saw the Packers go through a stretch under Matt LaFleur where they didn't lose 2 in a row for years. And now they've lost 2 in a row. So what is the perception on a team like the Green Bay Packers? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are struggling, yet they're 11-point favorites on the road or against a division team that has been just absolutely pitiful, but still 11 points, a lot of points. So those two games kind of interest me a little bit. Green Bay, Washington, Tampa Bay against Carolina. I'd like to get your thoughts on those.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, the Buccaneers, the first thought is, should they be laying double digits against anyone this year? But the Panthers, they've just been so bad, and they clearly have the worst quarterback situation in the league. We don't even know who's starting it. PJ Walker got hurt.
I would say you're not a PJ Walker fan? Come on.
I mean, Walker was a rough watch last week. I'm not going to lie, against the Rams. And then the Buccaneers, I actually like the Buccaneers. Brady has actually looked fine. It's just that their play calling, they're very predictable with their first down runs, and it's setting up Brady and his receivers for second and third and longs. But when Brady, like for the most part, like Brady's numbers and his eye test, he's not elite numbers, but he's been fine. And the Buccaneers still have good talent on defense. I think that that I guess people are still going to be supporting the Bucs because I think that they have more faith in them than the Packers, that they can turn things around, versus the Packers losing to the Giants and the Jets. Now the Giants and the Jets are everyone's flavor of the months, but
Right.
I don't like the Packers just don't have the same offensive weapons as the Bucs. I think there's still more trust with Brady than Rodgers. The Packers defense has gotten completely shredded, especially on the ground. And so, now the Packers are only, I think, 4.5-point road favorites against the Commanders. We've
That's
definitely
really strange.
Yeah, and we've been, and the Commanders, we got a lot of sharp action on them against the Titans. I feel like that there has been some like the Commanders have been a team that the public has liked to fade, but the Sharps are mostly on during the season,
and they hate Tennessee too.
Yeah, Tennessee.
The Sharps hate Tennessee.
Yeah. But Packers, and personally, I actually kind of agree with the sentiment that I trust the Bucs more than the Packers at this point. But I think obviously 2 crucial games for both those teams this week.
Interesting stat I heard earlier today that PJ Walker completed 10 passes last Sunday. There was only 1 completed pass beyond the line of scrimmage, and it was 1 yard beyond the line of scrimmage. That is insane. I don't think I've ever heard of that for a quarterback that played the whole game. So, I mean, I don't know if it's going to get any better. And then Robbie Anderson.
He got knocked out early. Actually, they had to bring in Eason.
Yeah, but it's still completing 10 passes and only 1.
Oh yeah, it's still bad.
Past the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and who would have thought that Panthers would be praying for the days of Sam Darnold? And
exactly.
That's basically where they're at.
That says a whole lot. I want to talk a little bit before we let you go. We appreciate you joining us today. I want to talk a little bit about college football and what you say. And there's some big games this week. I'll pick your brain on Ole Miss LSU in just a second. But is anything jump out here? There are a couple lines that I find interesting. One is Clemson and Syracuse. That 13.5, almost like they're begging you to take Clemson. And Syracuse has been so good this year, and I know they're better at home, but that line is intriguing to me.
Yeah, and it's definitely it's pretty good two-way action on the spread. Syracuse has gotten, I think, about 55% of the tickets and money on that number. Clemson, I think it's basically kind of the same story that the defense you trust and the offense with DJU,
right?
Not so much, and right. So with a team that doesn't have as great of an offense, it's tougher to lay double digits. But I think that more people may come around just because Georgia last season, when they went on their national title run, that was a historically good defense, and Clemson is not a historically good defense. But I think people are more willing to lay double digits with a non-offensive firepower than before, at least in college. But yeah, I mean, Syracuse has been one of the best stories in college football this year. This kind of feels like when they turn back into a pumpkin, or I guess an orange.
You mean like Kansas did a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, well, I mean, Kansas at least they pushed that game. It's not like they got blown out. But yeah, and then I don't know. I'm a Pac-12 guy, and so UCLA, Oregon, that really stands out to me, and especially betting trends wise. So UCLA has 74% of the tickets, but it's actually Oregon that has 55% of the handle, and that's the only spread this week at Caesar Sportsbook where one team's gotten at least 70% of the tickets, but not the majority of the money. So that's definitely a clear public versus sharp divide in that game. And that line's gone up from Oregon 4.5 to Oregon -6.
So the big money's telling you what to bet. Spencer, you see anything on this you like?
Oh man, yeah, I don't know. This is kind of a tough week for college. I feel like I kind of like Mississippi State to cover that 21. I mean, Alabama this year. I mean, I know they're still Alabama, but to me, they don't look quite as strong as a typical Bama team.
Max, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so we've gotten majority of action on Alabama for this one, which is I guess a little surprising because, like you said, Mississippi State's been good, and Alabama, not only did they lose to Tennessee, but they've been vulnerable against Texas A&M and Texas. I think that people might be reading into the history of Nick Saban versus Mike Leach, with Alabama coming off a loss. But we got at least one big bet though on Alabama. So this game for me is honestly a stay away. But it's been interesting to see the action mostly still coming in on Alabama for this one.
And then lastly, before we let you go, I can't let you go without at least mentioning the Pelicans and what they did last night against the Nets. Our best bet of the day yesterday, and not because we're homers. I was going through the analysis, and to me, it stuck out like a sore thumb. The Pelicans, to me, almost should have been favored, and I think because the Nets are who they are, they were favored. And betting the Pelicans on the money line was our best bet. They came through in a big way. It was never threatened. But now you see the Pelicans, and I was talking about with Spencer before you came on the air. I know someone plopped a big bet down on the Pelicans, and it changed their championship odds from plus 3,000, went to plus 2,700 earlier this week, and now it's plus 2,000. Have you seen a swing like this after one game, Max?
Well, honestly, for opening night, it was James Harden MVP odds that went from 50 to 1 to 30 to 1. And so I think with NBA, just with the league, the NBA is very social media heavy.
Yes.
And so it's a lot of like real time reaction. And, even though it's a long season, I think all it takes is one game and a bunch of highlights being shown, and that'll, draw people in to bet them. And so with the Pelicans, but the Pelicans, like before the season, like they were top 5 in tickets for NBA title. They were top 7 in handle. Zion was first in tickets for MVP, and he was second in handle. And, Louisiana bettors, not that Louisiana bettors are homers, but they definitely like to support their teams. And it's the same with every state. Like the reason why the Jets and the Giants are top 2 in tickets for moneyline is because we operate in New York. But Louisiana bettors definitely all over Zion and the Pelicans, but there's also been support from other states as well. They just have a lot of exciting pieces, and they're definitely a team on the upswing. And I think with the 2.5 line yesterday, like that's a lot of respect from the market on the Pelicans. The fact that the Nets were, I think, tied for the 3rd lowest or 4th lowest title odds, and they're only laying 2.5 to the Pelicans, even though, you're bringing Ben Simmons into the fold and there's still all the questions about chemistry. But this was also Zion's first game back in over a year.
Hopefully he didn't miss a beat.
Yeah. And so, I think the Pelicans are definitely one of the teams to keep an eye on. And the fact that they're already 20 to 1 to win the title, there's already a lot of excitement around this team.
Spencer, one last question from Max. Could be on anything you want.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I guess LSU. What are your thoughts on LSU-Ole Miss? That line. The LSU's now to 2.5 point favorite, I think. Do you think that's a little strange considering Ole Miss is undefeated?
Yeah, I was waiting for this one. I'm glad that you guys snuck this one in. So we opened this Ole Miss as a 2.5 point road favorite, and it swung all the way. It's now, last time I checked, it's LSU minus 2.5. And no, it's definitely like college games where it's a ranked team that's an underdog to an unranked team. Like all alarm bells should be ringing for sure. But it tells you, and especially if the line moves, like it's been a 5 point shift. So it kind of tells you, I think, what the market thinks of Ole Miss, whether they're, I guess, a legitimate. I think they're the 7th ranked team, and I don't think people think they're as good. I mean, their schedule, they really they don't have a signature win yet. I think that their best win right now is Kentucky, and this was a Kentucky team that was kind of beat up.
Missing their quarterback,
yeah. And so, and LSU, like, yes, like they've fallen flat on their face against Tennessee. They lost the season opener against Florida State, but they also have some nice wins over Mississippi State, and they handled Florida completely last weekend. And so, yeah, so Ole Miss, they've gotten about, I think it was like 64% of the tickets on the spread, but only 51% of the handle. The biggest college football spread bet this week that we've taken is 33,000 on LSU minus 2. Yeah, so no, we've definitely gotten very strong, sharp action on Brian Kelly and the Tigers.
Well, like I try to tell people who don't know what they're doing, and I'm like right in the middle. So I go where the big money goes. The big money's going, not always, but in this case, when a line doesn't make any sense to me, and this line makes 0 sense to me, I'm following the big money. I'll just take their advice more than I'll take my own, I guess. That's kind of the way to look at it, right? Sometimes.
Yeah. And you can always, and we share, the betting splits for NFL and college football all the time. And you can just see from the percentages, if one team has like 60% of the tickets, but the other team has 60% of the handle, you can tell which team that, the more respected money is coming in on versus, I guess, the more, casual bettors, what they're tending to bet on.
All right. Final question. Back to Saints-Cardinals. Give us a prediction on what you think is going to happen tonight. And you don't have to give me a final score.
Well, okay. Well, can I give a favorite bet instead?
Absolutely.
All right. I'm going first half under in this game. I think it's now at 21 and it was at 21.5. The Cardinals, they've started out really, really slow in their games this season. I think they're also 0-6 against the spread in the first half. And Cliff Kingsbury, he doesn't seem like a guy who prepares his team well at all. And in the second half, it's kind of, like, oh, Kyler, like, do your thing. But in the first half, when it's scripted plays, the Cardinals offense just looks terrible. And now they have to adjust to life without Hollywood Brown and working in DeAndre Hopkins. And so and Thursday night football games, just, if you're playing the Sunday before, it's obviously short rest, and Thursday night unders and Thursday night under first halves, those have been low scoring. The Saints with Andy Dalton, it's a lot of check downs. And so I would think like a lot of longer drives that eat the clock. And the Cardinals, like, it's a lot of horizontal passing for them too. So I like under 21 first half in this game.
I think that's a great bet. You guys watching and listening out there, I think that's a good one to go for. Max Meyer, we really appreciate you joining the show. We hope to have you on again sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, and good luck with your bets this weekend.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it, Max.
Max Meyer of Caesars, and it's always great to have someone from Caesars come on and talk. We've had all sorts of different representatives from Caesars, and they've all been great. Spencer, great partner to have. And we thank them for joining us. All right, it's time for Big Bucks as we roll towards the conclusion of this show. If anybody wants to give any kind of prediction or whatever, we're glad to take in the comments and we'll show it. You want to give us your Saints prediction? You got something else you like for the weekend? An LSU prediction? Tulane. We never even talked about Tulane. Tulane's playing a big one against Memphis.
A homecoming game.
And they are 7-point favorites over Memphis. That's something you don't see very often. And so we'd love to see all three of them win. It's got to start tonight, though. And
Saints got to start it off.
All right. Well, we're going to start with the loser first. He's got that cup on top of his head. Okay. You're supposed to drink
hiding from
towels.
us again. He's hiding from us.
He's using his excuses. His daughter's got cross country. Get out of here. Daughter's got cross country. He just is too embarrassed to show up. And why wouldn't he be? His $1,000 balance is down to $743. He's embarrassed. He's bringing us down, Spencer. But let's hope he can rebound because, there is a couple games in here that I think there's a common theme between us. And I think there's a lot of games that we all kind of like this week. Now, we stayed away from college, you and I did. Yep. But Zach's not afraid to keep going back to the well. He's got Rutgers -3 over Indiana. $44. $44 on Rutgers. He's trying to catch up. Oh. That's not the way to catch up.
Yeah, like Coastal Carolina last week. No, Rutgers. Oof.
Exactly. I mean, what is going on? I don't get it. All right, his chalk pick. Dolphins -7 over the Steelers. That is one of. He's got two $11 picks. That is one of them. I actually like the Dolphins pick. I think the Dolphins are going to roll this week in a Sunday night game. Steelers had their fun last week. Back to Mitch Trubisky. Back to stinking on offense. The Dolphins D, Spencer, is pretty good. And Tua is back, and let's hope he stays healthy.
Yeah, I like that play. I like that one. Syracuse play could be pretty good. I like the teaser too. So I think Zach might bounce back somewhat this week.
All right, we'll see. I'm not
just that
Cowboys scares
pick though. I mean, I'm not claiming to know anything about Rutgers.
But that's your best bet.
But yeah,
really?
It's like, man, that's just
your best bet.
That scares me.
Well, and he's got Chiefs 49ers under 48.5. I kind of like that. I think that is a decent play. The 49ers, depends on how healthy the 49ers defense is going to be. We'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, I really like that one because it sounds like the 49ers are pretty banged up. I actually think that could end up a shootout. That's
not a play I'm going to make. I'm just saying I don't love or hate it. That's definitely not a play I would touch. All right, Guru, you are leading the way right now at $1,080. You're $80 ahead of your original starting stack. And this week, your best bet, Chargers -6 versus the Seahawks. I love it. Tell me why you love it.
Nice. Yeah, I love it because I feel like this is a great get-right spot for Justin Herbert. He's had kind of a rough start to the year, and I'm thinking this will be a game where he can really break out, especially with Keenan Allen back. That's the thing I think that's really hurt him. I mean, Keenan Allen's his safety blanket, his go-to target. Now that he'll have him back, they should be able to shred the Seahawks, who have been better than I was expecting. You know, Pete Carroll's keeping them afloat, but I just don't see him being able to keep up with Herbert and the Chargers. And I'm going with you on the Jags, Jim. You know,
for different reasons, though. You give me your reason.
Yeah, well, mine is that y'all could call me crazy, but I feel like the Jags are actually I don't want to say the better team, but
you're crazy.
All right, fine. I'm crazy. I think because they have more yards on offense and are about the same in yards allowed. I think the Giants are slightly better on defense, but they're similar. They're similar in yards, which is why I think kind of explains this line. And I'll say this. I'm not saying for sure the Jags are a better team, but I will say Trevor Lawrence is a better quarterback than Daniel Jones.
Come on, man.
I'll say that. So give me Trevor and the Jags to cover.
You're not supposed to drink before you come on the show, right? I mean, that's just, you can't say that kind
of stuff. I'm drinking that Trevor Lawrence Kool-Aid.
I
tell you what, I'll shut up if they lose this week. If they lose again, y'all won't hear me talk about the Jags anymore. This is their last chance to prove me right. I put them on big bucks too. I've had the good string with big bucks. Hopefully they can do it. Some other ones real quick. Browns I like against the beat up Ravens, the cover. Jets, Broncos, both offenses stink, especially the passing game. So I think that one will go under. And then going back to the with a money line parlay, went a little safer this time. I feel like last week I maybe was a little too risky.
Yeah, you got a little crazy.
So I'm going with more chalky plays this week. I feel like all those should win, and they just need them all to win. Don't need them to cover, just need them to win.
Oh, you're going to see mine in a minute because mine's not too far off of that. I like most of these picks. Browns, I will say this. On the periphery, when I looked at it, I had the Browns, and then I went digging, and the Browns have lost 4 in a row to the Ravens, and they've lost all 4 against the spread to the Ravens. So there's something about Jim Harbaugh stinks against the division. Lamar Jackson stinks against the division unless it's the Cleveland Browns. So that makes me kind of stay away. That's just going to be a no play for me. I'm not poo-pooing it. I just won't play it at all. All right. I am $39 ahead of my original stack, and what's weird is my record is super good. My best bet keeps losing. I mean, it's really starting to tick me off. I don't know what's going on. I am 0, and I'm going to be completely transparent, 0-6 with my best bets. I think I know I'm 21-9 in my NFL picks column with my best bets. I believe I'm 19-8 in big bucks. And 6 of those 8 losses this season are with my best bet. It makes 0 sense. So, you know what? We're going to break it this week. And I put the Saints in there just because I would never, hardly ever, put the Saints in the best bet involved in anything. And I said, we're going to do something we wouldn't normally do. It's kind of the George Costanza thing. Do the opposite of what you would normally do. So that's what we're going to do here. Saints plus 8.5 in a teaser with the Raiders -1 over the Texans. I really like this teaser, so I don't know. And I actually put I tried something different last week. I said we're going to do everything $20. No. We're going back to the $30 pick. $36 to win 30 with my best bet. And then the chalk, I'm with you, but for a completely different reason. I have no faith in the Jaguars. I love the Giants. I've been all over the Giants all year long, but when big money in Las Vegas tells me something stinks, I'm going to go follow the trail, and it leads me to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Makes no sense, this line. And when a line makes 0 sense, I don't care why it doesn't make sense. I'm just going to jump on the train. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So this might be the only time you see me take the Jaguars, maybe ever, as a favorite. Because I heard
on Trevor.
Well, let me tell you a stat that I heard, and this is going to make anybody want to jump on this train. The Jaguars have lost 18 straight games against the NFC, straight up. And they, over the last 10 years, it might have been a little more, it might have been 11 years, 4-39 straight up against the NFC. So that doesn't exactly make you want to rush to your phone and jump on Jaguars. But you know what? We're all about bucking trends. And speaking of going crazy, how about the dog this week? The Chicago Bears getting 7.5 at the Patriots. Well, you know what? Everybody's on the Patriots. This is more of a fade in the public pick than anything. Not only that, but I think Justin Fields has actually played much better the last couple of weeks. And I think the Bears are going to have a semi-bounce-back game. Patriots, Bill Belichick hates the Browns. He put all his effort into beating the Browns last week, and he did it. And now he's going home on a Monday night Why? By the way, why the Bears on prime time again?
Ugh, yeah.
Does anybody know the answer?
Them
to
and
that?
the Broncos.
Zoe's shaking her head. She doesn't know the answer to that. I mean, none of us do. But anyway, I'm taking the Bears this week. I think I think this is a close game to the end. I think it's an ugly snooze fest, but I think it's a close game to the end. And I think the Bears closed. I don't think they lose by more than a touchdown. It wouldn't shock me if they actually won the game. So we'll see what happens there.
My total Patriots are my knockout pick.
Oh no, well then I'm definitely not rooting for it. I won't bet on it because I'm rooting for you, Spencer. And then my total this week: Packers, Commanders over 41.5. Both these teams, the Packers defense it's really not been good. I mean, when people want to talk about Aaron Rodgers, but their defense has been bad. And so the Commanders going to Taylor Heineke could give them a little bit of spark there. The Packers run defense especially has been bad. I think I almost wanted to take the Commanders, but I was too scared to do it. So I'm just going to go with the over. I think there are going to be a lot of points scored in this game because I think Aaron Rodgers, I'm not ready to say it's going to be a get-right game for him, but I think he is going to do a little bit better here. I think there might be 50, 52 points scored in this game. I really like that one. And my wild card play, very similar to yours. I got a money line parlay as well. Bengals, except I only have two teams with it. Bengals and Chargers, pretty close to a teaser, but not paying that extra juice to do it. Bengals and Chargers just got to win. Bengals are one of my best bets in my NFL picks column to cover against the Falcons, but I couldn't do it here. The Falcons are actually 6-0 against the spread. Got to come to an end at some point. I think Joe Burrow and company are getting things together, and I agree with you, Spencer. I think this Seahawks defense is terrible. Yeah. And they weren't terrible last week, but I think that's an outlier. So I think Justin Herbert is going to have a great day this week, and I think the Chargers are going to have a great day this week. They're at home for the second straight week after kind of laying an egg, getting lucky to win last week against Denver.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because, I mean, Cliff Kingsbury, as Max said, Cliff Kingsbury is that's why I think this thing is going to win tonight, because that dude is way in over his head as a head coach.
I agree. And so our final thoughts before we go: Saints-Cardinals. We both like the Saints tonight. We both like the Saints money line. Actually, I like the Saints more in a teaser, as I just showed you. But Saints-Cardinals, what is the key to victory for these New Orleans Saints?
I would say, just play smart and don't turn the ball over. I mean, I know that sounds cliche, but it's just kind of one of those things. I feel like even with all the injuries, the Saints, not necessarily the more talented team on paper with all the injuries, but I think they're the better team as far as they're smarter. I feel like Dennis Allen's more, decent head coach, to where as long as they don't screw it up, I feel like they should win. If it's straight up, I feel like they're the better team. I feel like the reason the line's moving is because of the quarterback thing, and a lot of sharps, I think, still believe in Kyler Murray, but I personally do not.
Well, I think they've only scored They've scored 26 points over the past 2 weeks. So you got to, whatever the blueprint has been to bottle up Kyler Murray, because he's scary when he has any hole whatsoever. You got to think at some point that Cliff Kingsbury is going to let him loose and let him run a little bit more. And that's one thing they haven't done. They haven't let him run that much. And I think that's why
they got 100 yards last week, but it was too late there.
You're right. I mean, you're talking about in garbage time.
Yeah.
I think the key, the Saints started fast last week. They got to start fast again this week and find a way to continue. Be more aggressive. Don't be conservative at the end of the half. It doesn't matter if the other team gets the ball back. Go for the gusto. Score that touchdown. Don't kick field goals. And I think they know that. And I think that's why I like the Saints tonight, because I think they are going to alter that game plan. I think they are going to play better ball tonight. And I guess we'll find out in just, about 2 hours and 15 minutes if you're watching this live. All right, that is going to just about wrap it up for us this week. We're going to be back on Monday. I will be back live tomorrow morning with Jeff Duncan at 9:15 a.m. live Datitude, as Dunk is live from Glendale, Arizona. And we will talk about it all on our review show, Datitude. It'll be episode number 106. It's hard to believe that we've gotten that far already. But we will be on live. Spencer, actually, I'm taking Monday off. So it'll just be Spencer and Zach can lament Spencer about his Rutgers pick on Monday. Make sure you give him the business. I won't be here, so make sure you give him the business, right?
Oh, if Rutgers stinks up, you best believe I'll give him the business.
No, I can't wait to hear it. But that is going to wrap it up. Enjoy the game. For Spencer, the Guru Urquhart, for Zoe Collins-Rath, who's in the background, and she gives a thumbs up, I think. Did we do okay? We did all right, are we? We'll try it again on Monday, and it'll be better because I won't be here. Jim Derry says goodbye. Enjoy the game. We'll see you then.